Gunshots echoed across the dusty plains, a man's body falling hard into the dirt. Blood seeped into the thirsty earth of Stone Canyon. But this wasn't the end of the story. It was simply where fate had led them all. 24 hours earlier, the back room of Hawkins' saloon reeked of cheap whiskey, sweat, and desperation. Claire's wrists burned against the coarse rope binding them, the hemp fibers cutting into her skin with each subtle movement. Her once white blouse was torn at the shoulder, a bruise darkening her left cheek where Tyson's ring had connected earlier. Beside her, Jessica trembled uncontrollably, her younger frame seeming to shrink further with each passing moment. At 21, she was too young to face this nightmare. Tyson loomed over them, his substantial frame blocking what little lamplight filtered through the grimy windows. His eyes, cold and calculating, gleamed with cruel anticipation as he ran thick fingers through his well-groomed beard. Behind him, Fisher leaned against the wall, thumbing the edge of a hunting knife, a Winchester 73 resting casually against his thigh. "You understand your situation now, don't you?" Tyson's voice carried the rough edge of whiskey and authority. "Can't pay with coin." His hand reached out, tracing Claire's jawline, making her flinch. "Then you pay with flesh." Claire's heart hammered against her ribs. She'd faced hardship before, but nothing like this. Her eyes met Jessica's, wide, terrified, pleading. Her little sister, the only family she had left in this world. "Please," Jessica whispered, her voice cracking. "Somebody help us." The cry pierced through the thin wooden walls, carrying into the main saloon where Cole Stone sat nursing a glass of water. He hadn't touched whiskey in 5 years, not since that day he'd returned home to find his wife and daughter slaughtered, their blood soaking into the floorboards of the home he'd built with his own hands. Cole was 42, though the lines etched in his face and the silver threading his dark hair suggested more years. The war between the states had claimed his youth. The Wade gang had taken everything else. Now he existed rather than lived, running his cattle on Stone Canyon Ranch, speaking only when necessary, touching his Colt Peacemaker only to clean it, never to fire it, until tonight. Jessica's cry hit him like a physical blow. It wasn't just her voice. It was the same desperate pitch he'd heard at Gettysburg, when Private Lawson took a mini-ball to the gut beside him, the same tone that haunted his dreams, when he remembered finding his daughter Sarah's body, her hand still reaching toward the door where he should have been hours earlier. Cole's scarred hand tightened around his glass. His weathered face remained impassive, but something shifted in his eyes, a flicker of the man he'd once been, the sharpshooter who could hit a target at 200 yards, the officer who'd led men through the bloodiest battles of the war. The piano player faltered, the saloon quieting as Cole rose. His boots struck the wooden floor with deliberate heaviness as he moved toward the back room. Men turned away, suddenly fascinated by their drinks or the grain patterns in the wooden tables. They knew that walk. They'd seen it before. The walk of a man crossing the line between standing by and standing up. Cole didn't hesitate at the door. He pushed it open in one fluid motion, taking in the scene in the split-second assessment of a trained soldier. 2 women bound, 2 armed men, multiple exit points, poor lighting. Tactical advantages and disadvantages calculated in the time it took most men to blink. Tyson turned, annoyance flashing across his face at the interruption. "This is private business. Get out." Fisher straightened, his hand moving to the Winchester, but his grip was wrong. Thumb too high on the stock, stance too wide. An amateur playing at being dangerous. Cole said nothing, his gaze moving from the women to Tyson, noting the slight bulge beneath the man's vest, a concealed Remington double Derringer. Poor choice for anything beyond point-blank range. "I said get—" Tyson began, but stopped when he truly looked at Cole. There was something in the older man's eyes that made him hesitate, something cold and knowing and deadly. "Let them go." Cole's voice was quiet, roughened by years of disuse, but it carried the unmistakable weight of command. Fisher snorted, raising the Winchester with the overconfidence of youth. "You heard the boss, old man. Turn around or—" The world slowed down for Cole Stone. It always did in moments like this, a peculiar gift from his days as a sniper. He could see Fisher's finger tightening on the trigger, could track Tyson's hand moving toward his hidden derringer. He noted the angle of the lamplight, the distance to each man, the positioning of the women. Cole's hand moved with a speed that belied his age. The Colt Peacemaker cleared its holster in a blur of well-oiled metal, the worn grip fitting his palm like it had been crafted for him alone. Two shots rang out in rapid succession, precise, controlled, deliberate. The first bullet struck Fisher's shoulder, spinning him backward, the Winchester clattering to the floor unfired. The second found Tyson's right hand, shattering his knuckles before he could reach his hidden firearm. Blood splattered against the faded wallpaper as both men howled in pain and surprise. "Jesus Christ!" Tyson clutched his bleeding hand, eyes wide with shock and fury. "Do you know who I work for? Do you have any idea what you've done?" Cole advanced, Colt still trained steadily. He kicked the Winchester away before addressing Claire. "Can you stand?" She nodded, struggling against her bonds. Cole knelt, keeping his weapon aimed at the wounded men, while he used his free hand to work at the knots binding Claire. The rope fell away, revealing angry red welts beneath. "Get your sister," he instructed, his voice remaining calm despite the tension electrifying the air. "We're leaving." Claire quickly freed Jessica, pulling her trembling sister to her feet. As they moved toward the door, Tyson's voice cut through his pain, venom lacing every syllable. "This isn't over, old man. Judge Hammond owns this town. He owns the law. And when he hears about this, he'll own your worthless life, too." Cole paused at the doorway, his expression unchanged. "I didn't kill you because these women don't need more bloodshed tonight." His eyes narrowed slightly. "Don't mistake that for mercy." Stone Canyon Ranch sat nestled against the foothills, 15 miles outside town. The main house, built of sturdy logs and riverstone, overlooked the property with the watchful posture of a sentinel. A natural spring bubbled near the western edge, feeding a small creek that cut across the grazing lands. Cole had chosen the location carefully after the war, valuing its defensive position as much as its water rights. From the highest window, you could see approaching riders for miles. From the root cellar beneath the barn, a narrow tunnel led to a hidden exit behind the ridge, a precaution born from years of conflict. Claire stood on the porch as dawn broke over the eastern horizon, a cup of coffee warming her hands. The bruise on her cheek had darkened overnight, but the fear in her eyes had been replaced by something harder, more resolute. "You think they'll come?" she asked as Cole emerged from the house, rifle in hand. He didn't bother responding to the obvious. Instead, he handed her the weapon, a Spencer carbine, reliable and straightforward. "Ever fired one of these?" Claire took it, her hands automatically finding the proper grip. "Pa taught me, before he left for the war." Cole nodded, noting her stance, shoulders squared, feet properly positioned. "Aim for center mass. Don't try for fancy shots. The Spencer doesn't have the accuracy for it." "I'm not afraid to kill if I have to." Her voice was steady, eyes fixed on the distant horizon. "That's what worries me." Cole took the rifle back, checking its action with practiced hands. "Killing changes you, always, sometimes in ways you don't notice until it's too late." Inside, Jessica was setting the table, moving with the nervous energy of someone trying to maintain normalcy in an abnormal situation. She looked up as Cole entered, her young face surprisingly composed. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for what you did last night." Cole nodded once, uncomfortable with gratitude. He set the Spencer against the wall and unfolded a worn map across the table. "Tell me why you came to Redemption Creek." The real reason, the sisters exchanged a glance, a silent communication passing between them. "We're looking for our father," Claire finally answered, joining them at the table. "Sergeant William Hayes, 12th Pennsylvania Volunteers. He was reported missing after Antietam, but we received a letter 3 months ago from a man who claimed to have served with him. Said Pa might be alive, somewhere near Redemption Creek." Cole's hand froze momentarily over the map, his face betraying nothing. But inside, recognition struck him like a physical blow. William Hayes. The name belonged to a ghost, a man who'd pulled Cole from a burning farmhouse during the Maryland campaign, who'd saved his life and then disappeared into the chaos of battle 2 days later. "You knew him?" It wasn't a question. Claire had caught his momentary hesitation. "A lot of men in the war," Cole deflected, focusing again on the map. "Town's here. We're here. Only 2 good approaches to the ranch. Anyone comes, they'll use the main road or the creek bed." "Mr. Stone," Claire's voice hardened. "Did you know William Hayes?" Cole met her gaze, seeing the determination there, the same stubborn set of the jaw that he remembered from a battlefield a lifetime ago. "He saved my life at Antietam. Never saw him after that day. Assumed he died in the fighting." Cole's words were clipped, efficient. "Now, if you want to stay alive long enough to find him, if he's even here, we need to prepare. Hammond won't let last night go unanswered." Jessica's eyes widened. "Who's Hammond?" "Judge Edgar Hammond, appointed by the territorial governor 3 years ago. Rules this country like his personal kingdom." Cole traced a route on the map. "Controls the sheriff, the bank, most of the businesses in town. If Tyson works for him, then Hammond's interests go beyond just legal matters." A knock at the door silenced them. Cole's hand moved to his Colt, but relaxed when a familiar voice called out, "It's McCoy, Stone. Don't shoot an old friend." Cole opened the door to a barrel-chested man with a thick gray beard and blacksmith's arms. Thomas McCoy had served in the 7th Kentucky, fighting for the Union despite his state's divided loyalties. Now he ran the town's smithy, crafting everything from horseshoes to customized firearms. "Heard you caused quite a stir last night," McCoy said, stepping inside. His eyes found the sisters, noting their condition with a frown. "Ladies, news travels fast," Cole observed. McCoy set a heavy sack on the table, brought some supplies, extra ammunition, food provisions. He lowered his voice. "And information. Hammond's furious. Sent riders to fetch Blackwell from Fort Laramie." "The bounty hunter?" "The same. Hammond's also got Sheriff Paxton issuing warrants for you. Kidnapping charges, if you can believe it. Says you took these young women against their will." Claire made a sound of disgust. "That's absurd." "Doesn't matter what's true," McCoy replied grimly. "Only matters what Hammond says is true. That's how it works in Redemption Creek." Cole studied the map again, mind working through scenarios with military precision. How many men can Hammond gather? 20, maybe 25 if he calls in favors from the mining camps. And loyal to him, McCoy shrugged his massive shoulders. Loyal to his money, except for Blackwell. That man's loyal to killing, plain and simple. Cole nodded, decision made. "Claire, Jessica, pack whatever you brought with you. We're leaving before sundown." "Running," Claire challenged, arms crossed. "Repositioning," Cole corrected. "Fight's coming whether we want it or not. Better to choose the battlefield than have it chosen for us." Sheriff Daniel Paxton was a coward wearing a brave man's badge. Everyone in Redemption Creek knew it, including Paxton himself. He'd gotten the job through his cousin's connection to Judge Hammond, and he kept it by following orders without question, a trait Hammond valued far above competence or integrity. Now standing before Hammond's imposing mahogany desk in the courthouse, Paxton felt the familiar tightening in his gut, the fear that someday he'd be asked to do something from which there was no returning. You're telling me, Hammond said, his cultured voice dangerously soft, that one aging rancher dispatched two of my men and absconded with merchandise I specifically requested? Hammond was 58, silver-haired and distinguished in his tailored suit. Nothing in his appearance suggested the ruthlessness that had allowed him to build his empire on the frontier. Nothing except his eyes, pale blue and utterly devoid of compassion. Yes, sir, Paxton swallowed. Cole Stone, former military, keeps to himself mostly, runs cattle up at Stone Canyon. And the women? Sisters, I believe, arrived on yesterday's stage from Denver. Tyson approached them about a debt their father supposedly owed. Hammond's lips thinned. There was no debt, you imbecile. That was the pretense to acquire them. He rose from his chair, moving to the window that overlooked the town's main street. The older one especially, fair-haired I was told, perfect for our buyers across the border. Paxton shifted uncomfortably. He'd always suspected what Hammond's occasional special shipments contained, but hearing it stated so plainly made his skin crawl. Stone won't be easy to handle, he ventured. War veteran, sharpshooter. According to town gossip, every man bleeds the same, Hammond replied dismissively. Assemble a proper force. I want those women recovered and Stone made an example of. The next shipment leaves in 3 days and our Mexican partners don't appreciate delays. Yes, sir. Paxton turned to leave, but Hammond's voice stopped him. And Daniel, no mistakes this time. Your position and your life depend on it. Night fell across Stone Canyon, bringing with it a tense silence. Cole, Claire, and Jessica had relocated to an abandoned line shack 3 miles north of the main ranch house, a simple one-room structure built into the side of a hill, offering both cover and a clear view of the surrounding terrain. McCoy had returned to town to gather intelligence and spread misinformation about their whereabouts. 2 other allies had joined them. Rodriguez, a neighboring rancher who'd fought with the Mexican cavalry against French occupation before coming north, and Watson, a taciturn former buffalo hunter whose skill with a Sharps rifle was legendary in 3 territories. Cole knelt at the shack's single window, Spencer carbine resting on the sill. In the distance, pinpricks of light marked the approach of riders along the main road to the ranch house. 8, maybe 10, he murmured, more to himself than the others. Too few, Rodriguez observed, checking the loads in his Remington revolver. Hammond would send more. It's a scouting party, Watson agreed from his position at the rear window. Testing our defenses. Claire approached, carrying the Colt Navy revolver Cole had given her earlier. Let me take a shift. You need rest. Cole glanced at her, noting the determined set of her jaw, so much like her father's. He hadn't told her yet about knowing William Hayes, hadn't shared how Hayes had dragged him from that burning farmhouse at Antietam, both of them choking on smoke and gunpowder. How they'd fought side by side for 6 desperate hours before Hayes disappeared in the chaos of the Union advance. Some debts could never be repaid, but protecting William Hayes's daughters? That might be a start. Take position here, he instructed, surrendering his spot. Watch for movement near the tree line. They'll try to approach under cover. As Claire settled in, Jessica joined them, her young face solemn in the dim light. I found something in town yesterday, she said quietly, before Tyson caught us. From her pocket, she withdrew a folded document. I was asking about our father at the land office when the clerk stepped away. There were papers on his desk about special shipments signed by Judge Hammond and Tyson. Cole unfolded the paper, reading quickly. His expression darkened as he realized what he was holding. A manifest listing women's names, ages, and qualities, alongside prices and destinations across the Mexican border. Human trafficking, Rodriguez spat, looking over Cole's shoulder. Selling young women to brothels and worse. Hammond's built his fortune on it, Cole concluded grimly. And your father must have discovered it. Jessica's eyes widened. You think that's why he disappeared? Hammond had him killed? Or he's in hiding, Claire suggested, her voice tight with hope and fear. Maybe he sent that letter to warn us away, not to bring us here. Before Cole could respond, Watson hissed a warning. Riders approaching the ranch house. They're spreading out for an assault. Through the darkness, they watched as Hammond's men surrounded the main house. Unaware it stood empty. After a tense standoff, they stormed inside only to emerge minutes later, clearly frustrated. They'll widen their search, Cole predicted. By morning, they'll find our trail. Then we strike first, Claire said firmly, her finger tracing the edge of her revolver. Hit them before they hit us. Cole studied her, seeing not just William Hayes in her features, but something of himself as well. The same cold determination he'd carried through battlefields across the South. No, he decided. We don't have the numbers or the position, but I know someone who might help even the odds. He turned to Watson. How fast can you reach Marshal Reed in Fort Collins? Watson considered. 2 days hard ride. Do it. Tell him what we found. Tell him Hammond is running women across the border. As Watson departed, Cole turned to the others. We hold this position for 2 days. No engagement unless absolutely necessary. Rodriguez nodded, but Claire's expression remained troubled. What if Watson doesn't make it? She asked. What if this Marshal Reed doesn't believe him? Cole checked his Colt methodically, spinning the cylinder to verify each chamber was loaded. Then we fight anyway. Dawn broke on the second day with the crack of a rifle shot. Cole was awake instantly, moving low toward the front window, where Claire had taken the final watch. She was pressed against the wall. Spencer carbine clutched tightly. Sniper, she whispered. Ridge to the east. Bullet hit about 3 feet above the window. Cole nodded, impressed by her composure. Warning shot. They want us to know they found us. He peered carefully around the window frame, using a small pocket mirror to scan the surrounding terrain. More than a sniper, Hammond's brought his army. At least 20 riders had formed a loose perimeter around the line shack, keeping their distance but effectively cutting off all escape routes. At their center, mounted on a magnificent black stallion, sat Judge Edgar Hammond himself, resplendent in a black frock coat and wide-brimmed hat. Beside him, Sheriff Paxton looked small and insignificant, despite the badge gleaming on his chest. Rodriguez joined them, cursing softly in Spanish. No sign of Watson or the marshal. We're on our own. Jessica approached, her face pale but determined. What do we do now? Before Cole could answer, Hammond's voice boomed across the distance. Cole Stone, this is Judge Edgar Hammond. You are harboring fugitives and resisting lawful authority. Surrender now, and you may yet receive the mercy of a fair trial. Cole's laugh was harsh and without humor. His idea of a fair trial is a short rope and a long drop. I know you can hear me, Stone, Hammond continued. Perhaps this will encourage your cooperation. From behind Hammond's horse, a figure was pushed forward, stumbling to her knees in the dust. Claire gasped, pressing closer to the window. They have her, she whispered in horror. How did they get her? Cole's blood ran cold as he recognized the prisoner. Jessica stood beside him, which meant the woman kneeling before Hammond was... Impossible, Rodriguez stared in disbelief. Yet there she was, identical to Jessica in every way. Same delicate features, same golden hair, same terrified expression. Twins, Cole realized, turning to Jessica. You never mentioned a twin sister. Jessica's face had gone white. Elizabeth. She stayed in Denver. She wasn't supposed to follow us. Hammond's voice carried clearly. I have Elizabeth Hayes here. Surrender within the hour, or her blood will water this worthless soil. Your choice, Stone. Cole's mind raced, calculating angles, distances, possibilities. 20 armed men, One hostage, limited ammunition, no reinforcements coming. The odds were impossible. I'm going out there, he decided, checking his Colt one final time. That's suicide, Rodriguez protested. Not if you and the sisters provide covering fire from here. Cole's voice was calm, his plan already forming. Hammond wants a spectacle. He'll want to make an example of me personally. Claire grabbed his arm. Why are you doing this? You barely know us. This isn't your fight. Cole looked at her, really looked at her, seeing the echo of William Hayes in her determined stance. Your father saved my life at Antietam, pulled me from a burning farmhouse when everyone else had given up. I never got to repay that debt. Understanding dawned in Claire's eyes. You knew. All along, you knew who our father was. Some debts can never be fully repaid, Cole said simply, but sometimes you get a chance to try. He moved to the door, pausing only to give Rodriguez final instructions. When I make my move, target Hammond first, then Paxton. The rest will scatter without leadership. Rodriguez nodded grimly. It has been an honor, my friend. Cole stepped outside, hands raised high above his head. The morning sun cast long shadows as he walked slowly toward Hammond's position. Unarmed, his Colt left behind. Hammond smiled triumphantly as Cole approached. Wiser than I gave you credit for? Stone. Let the girl go, Cole demanded, stopping 20 paces from Hammond's horse. She has nothing to do with this. On the contrary, Hammond gestured, and one of his men yanked Elizabeth to her feet. These Hayes girls have everything to do with this. Their father has been a thorn in my side for years. Cole kept his expression neutral despite his shock. William Hayes is alive. Hammond laughed coldly. Oh, very much so. Working with federal investigators, gathering evidence against me. He thought I didn't know. His smile faded. Until now, I couldn't find leverage against him. His daughters changed that equation considerably. Where is he? Cole demanded. Closer than you think. Hammond nodded to someone behind Cole. Cole turned, instinct warning him too late. A rifle butt struck him hard across the temple, sending him sprawling into the dust. As darkness threatened to swallow him, he looked up into the grim face of a man he'd thought long dead. I'm sorry, Cole, William Hayes said, his voice heavy with regret. He has all three of my daughters now. I had no choice. Consciousness returned to Cole, like a tide of pain washing through his skull. He found himself bound to a wooden chair inside what appeared to be Hammond's study in town, a room of leather-bound books and hunting trophies that reeked of false civilization. William Hayes stood by the window, a ghost from Cole's past now heartbreakingly solid. He was older, grayer, his once powerful frame bent with age and worry, but the eyes were the same, keen and intelligent. You should have stayed away, Hayes said without turning. You and my daughters both. Difficult to do when I didn't know they were coming, Cole replied, testing his bonds. The ropes were professional work, offering no give. Hayes finally faced him. I tried to warn them. The letter they received wasn't from a comrade. It was from me, telling them to stay in Denver. He shook his head. Claire never did listen when it mattered most. Hammond said you've been gathering evidence against him for 3 years, working with Federal Marshal Reed. Hayes's voice dropped. We were close, Stone. So damn close to bringing him down. Then my girls arrived, and everything fell apart. The door opened, and Hammond entered, followed by a man Cole didn't recognize. Tall, lean, with the cold eyes of a predator. This, Cole realized, must be Blackwell, the infamous bounty hunter. Touching reunion, Hammond observed. Former brothers in arms, reunited after all these years. He circled Cole's chair. Hayes has told me all about you, Stone. Distinguished war record, expert marksman, man of principle. Hammond stopped, leaning close. Principles are a luxury out here. I learned that lesson early. Where are the Hayes sisters? Cole demanded. Secure. All three will fetch excellent prices across the border, especially the twins. Matching sets are particularly valuable in my line of business. Cole lunged against his restraints, earning a backhand from Blackwell that split his lip. Your operation ends now, Cole spat blood onto Hammond's polished floor. Marshall Reed knows everything. Marshall Reed is 2 days' ride away, Hammond replied smoothly. By the time he arrives, if your man Watson even reaches him, the Hayes girls will be long gone, and you and their father will have tragically killed each other in a dispute. He turned to Hayes. Isn't that right, William? Hayes's expression was agonized. You promised if I cooperated, you'd spare my daughters. Hammond smiled thinly. I lied. With a nod to Blackwell, Hammond left the room. The bounty hunter drew a wicked-looking knife, approaching Cole with methodical purpose. Nothing personal, Blackwell said, voice eerily detached. Just business. The door burst open again, but instead of Hammond returning, Sheriff Paxton stumbled in, his face ashen. Blackwell, Hammond needs you, now. Riders approaching from the north, dozens of them. Blackwell hesitated, then cursed, sheathing his knife. Watch them, he ordered Paxton, hurrying out. Paxton stood nervously by the door, hand resting on his revolver. Outside they could hear shouts, the sounds of running feet, horses whinnying in distress. What's happening out there, Sheriff? Cole asked conversationally, as if they were merely passing the time. Paxton swallowed. None of your concern, Stone. Sounds like Marshall Reed arrived early, Hayes suggested, moving casually toward the window, with considerable reinforcements. Paxton's eyes darted between his prisoners and the door. The shouting outside intensified, followed by the distinctive crack of gunfire. Stay back from that window, Paxton ordered, drawing his revolver. Too late, he realized his mistake. Taking his eyes off Cole had given Hayes the opportunity to seize a heavy brass paperweight from Hammond's desk. The makeshift weapon connected with Paxton's temple, dropping him like a stone. Still got a decent swing, old friend, Cole observed as Hayes used Paxton's knife to cut his bonds. Not as good as Antietam, Hayes grunted, working quickly. But it'll do. Free, Cole relieved Paxton of his revolver and gun belt. We need to find your daughters. Any idea where Hammond would keep them? The old tannery at the edge of town. It's where he holds all his shipments before transport. Outside, the gunfire had intensified. Cole peered through the window to see a chaotic scene. Hammond's men engaged with what appeared to be ordinary townspeople. Shopkeepers, ranchers, craftsmen, all armed and fighting with surprising coordination. That's not Marshall Reed, Cole realized. That's the town. They're rising against Hammond. We gave them the evidence they needed, Hayes explained, checking Paxton's revolver. While you were unconscious, McCoy and Rodriguez have been spreading the word, showing people the manifest Jessica found. Turns out Hammond's taken daughters from half the families in the county over the years. Cole nodded, a grim satisfaction settling in his chest. Let's finish this. The tannery stood on the outskirts of Redemption Creek, a decrepit building of weathered wood and rusted metal. Inside, the stench of chemicals and despair mingled in the air. Claire, Jessica, and Elizabeth Hayes were secured in what had once been the finishing room, guarded by Fisher, his shoulder crudely bandaged from Cole's bullet, and 2 other men. When the commotion began in town, Fisher sent 1 guard to investigate. He never returned. Something's wrong, Fisher muttered, pacing nervously. Hammond said this would be simple. Claire watched him, calculating. The ropes binding her wrists had been hastily tied, and she'd been working them looser for the past hour. Beside her, Jessica and Elizabeth huddled together, the twins drawing strength from their reunion despite the dire circumstances. You know Hammond will kill you too eventually, Claire said conversationally. Men like him don't leave witnesses. Fisher snorted. Shut your mouth, woman. She's right. the remaining guard said uneasily. We should check what's happening. Hammond said stay put, so we're staying put. Fisher snapped. The sound of approaching footsteps silenced them. Fisher raised his revolver, pointing it toward the door. It exploded inward, torn from its hinges by a shotgun blast that filled the room with smoke and splinters. In the confusion, Claire broke free from her loosened bonds, lunging toward Fisher. His revolver discharged, the bullet going wide as she crashed into him, both of them tumbling to the floor. The second guard wheeled toward the door, only to face the barrels of Cole Stone's borrowed revolver. Don't, Cole advised quietly. The guard wisely raised his hands. William Hayes rushed to his daughters, knife in hand to cut their bindings. Elizabeth! Jessica! Are you hurt? The twins embraced their father with tearful exclamations. Only Claire remained separate, struggling with Fisher on the dusty floor. She struck him once, twice, her fist connecting with satisfying impact against his jaw. He went limp beneath her. Cole approached, offering a hand to help her up. Your father taught you well. Claire accepted his help, breathing hard. He taught me to fight. You taught me to win. She looked past Cole to where her father embraced her sisters. He's really alive. All this time. He thought he was protecting you by staying away, Cole explained, working with Marshall Reed to build a case against Hammond and his operation. And nearly got us all killed in the process, she replied, but there was no real anger in her voice, only relief and lingering adrenaline. Outside, the gunfire had diminished to occasional, sporadic shots. The uprising was succeeding. We should join the others, Cole suggested. Hammond's still out there. William Hayes approached, his daughters at his side. The family resemblance was striking, the same determined set of the jaw, the same clear-eyed intensity that Cole remembered from the battlefield. Hammond will have headed for the border, Hayes predicted. He keeps horses ready at the livery. Cole nodded. Then that's where we'll find him. Judge Edgar Hammond had not survived and thrived in the brutal world of the frontier by failing to prepare for contingencies. As his empire crumbled around him, he implemented his final escape plan. 2 fast horses, saddlebags filled with gold and negotiable bonds, and a clear path to the Mexican border where his connections would ensure comfort and protection. He had nearly reached the livery stable when a bullet kicked up dust at his feet. Hammond froze, turning slowly to face Cole Stone and William Hayes, both armed and advancing steadily. It's over, Hammond, Hayes called. Your operation is finished. Hammond's aristocratic features twisted with contempt. Nothing is ever truly finished, Hayes. Men like me will always exist because men like you lack the vision and courage to do what's necessary. Call it what it is, Cole interjected, his voice cold. Not vision, not courage, just greed and cruelty. Hammond's hand drifted toward his coat, where a derringer waited in a hidden pocket. Easy for you to judge, Stone. So righteous, so pure of purpose. His smile turned vicious. Did you ever tell Hayes what really happened to your family? Cole's grip on his revolver tightened imperceptibly. Don't. He doesn't know, does he? Hammond pressed, seeing the advantage. Doesn't know that your wife and daughter died because of your testimony against me in '70. That Army supply contract case in Denver. Hayes glanced at Cole, momentarily confused. What's he talking about? I sent the Wade gang to your ranch as a message, Hammond continued relentlessly, to show what happens to men who stand against me. Your family's blood is on your hands, and Stone, not mine. For a heartbeat, the world stopped. Cole felt the familiar rage rising within him, the same black tide that had nearly consumed him after finding his slaughtered family. His vision narrowed to Hammond's smug face, his finger tightening on the trigger. Cole! Hayes's voice seemed to come from far away. Don't give him what he wants. With tremendous effort, Cole steadied his breathing. You're right, he told Hammond, his voice dangerously calm. Their blood is on my hands, because I wasn't there to protect them. He took a deliberate step forward. Just like I'm here to protect the Hayes family now. Hammond recognized his mistake too late. His hand darted to his hidden derringer. But Cole was faster, had always been faster. The Colt roared once and Hammond staggered backward, a red stain blooming across his immaculate white shirt. You can't, Hammond gasped, collapsing to his knees. I am the law here. Not anymore, Cole replied, watching dispassionately as Hammond toppled face first into the dust of the street he had once ruled. 1 week later, Marshal Jonathan Reed stood on the porch of Stone Canyon Ranch, watching as Cole secured the last of the Hayes family's belongings to their wagon. The territorial governor sends his thanks, Reed informed them. Hammond's operations stretch farther than we realized. His records have already led to arrests in 3 states. William Hayes nodded gravely. And the women he trafficked? Being returned to their families where possible. Others are being given fresh starts elsewhere. Reed turned to Cole. The governor also mentioned a pardon is forthcoming for your role in Hammond's death. Self-defense, clearly. Cole merely nodded, continuing his work. Legal absolution meant little to him. The only judgment that mattered was his own, and the debt he owed, to William Hayes, to his lost family, to himself, felt finally, if incompletely, addressed. Claire approached, leading her horse. Everything's ready, Pa. We can leave for Denver whenever you say. Hayes embraced his oldest daughter, then turned to Cole, extending his hand. I can never repay what you've done for my family. Cole accepted the handshake. Consider the debt from Antietam settled. Will you be all right here? Claire asked Cole, her expression conveying more than her words. In another life, under different circumstances, there might have been something between them, a recognition of kindred spirits. I'll manage, Cole replied. Always have. As the Hayes family departed, Marshal Reed lingered, studying Cole with professional interest. The territorial office could use a man with your skills, Stone. Deputy marshal position is open. Cole paused, considering. For 5 years, he'd existed in a limbo of grief and guilt, neither living nor dying. Now, having protected the Hayes family, having confronted Hammond, something had shifted within him. I'll think about it, he said finally, surprising himself with the admission. Reed nodded, satisfied. That's all I ask. Later, as the sun set over Stone Canyon, Cole stood on his porch, watching darkness claim the land. He thought of William Hayes and his daughters, heading toward a reunion with their past and a fresh start for their future. He thought of Hammond, whose empire of suffering had crumbled to dust. He thought of his own wife and daughter, whose memories no longer seemed to burn quite as painfully as before. Some wounds never fully heal, he reflected, but perhaps they didn't need to. Perhaps it was enough that they stopped bleeding, that they hardened into scars, marks of battles survived, of lessons learned, of a life not wasted. Cole Stone turned and entered his home, closing the door against the gathering night. For the first time in years, he lit the lamp in the front window, a signal, not of an ending, but of a beginning, a return to the land of the living.